Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, I wanted to go ahead and cover Samyra. I want to make sure I get her name right. I haven't looked at her content very much. I went over it today. I actually had, one of you guys wanted me to look at her, and I feel like I got some interesting things to say out of it. What I want to say to start out with is that she does have a lot going for her. She's very talented. She can sing really, really well. She's very charismatic and she's very ambitious. As I think she said that she went to Harvard, if I saw that correctly. So some of it I was like, oh, wow. So I can kind of understand. I want to explain, I can understand why she's popular. I want to explain more of why she's popular throughout this, but I think that the major reason that Samyra is popular in a fat acceptance space is because she has an ability to tap into a lot of sentiment of fat people or people who have been fat for a very, very long time. There's a lot of things that she says that I think, I used to think like that, or oh, yeah, that's a line of logic that I felt, or yep, I used to feel that way too. One of her biggest things is she talks about sizes, particularly like anything that doesn't go above a 2X. She has a huge issue with that. And I remember when I was in high school, I was obsessed with Paramore. Absolutely obsessed. Okay, you think I'm obsessed with Taylor Swift? It's kind of similar with Paramore. Okay, I'm just that way. I love an artist. I dive in deep. I'm ride or die, for the most part. But when I was a teenager, I was so into Paramore. And it was the kind of fandom where I couldn't criticize the band or Haley or anything. It was so devastating to me when they broke up in 2010. If you guys know, you know. But regardless, one of the issues that they had is that their shirts, their merch didn't go above a 2X and I didn't fit in it. And I remember just feeling so shut out of life or feeling so shut out of something that I loved. And it was like, well, maybe I can lose weight to get into that shirt, but I don't know. And, and then I would try to lose weight and it's like it would never happen, or I couldn't focus on it, or I just couldn't do it. I had BED when I was in high school. That's an obvious complicated issue towards losing weight. And I was never able to fit in that merch. I got a shirt when I joined, I think it was Paramore Nation or Paramore Fan Club. I might be mixing up Taylor and Paramore. I'm confused myself, but I've confused myself. But the point is, I got a shirt and I couldn't ever really fit in it. And it was really sad to me. So I think she kind of taps in on those kinds of things that a lot of very fat people have felt. And that's why people like her. So we're going to go ahead and respond to some of her TikToks. And let's do this. This one is in regards to her needing to get a seatbelt extender for the plane. So that's, again, one of those things that is extremely relatable to very fat people. It's embarrassing when you have to ask. It's difficult. And she kind of makes it an issue. And it's one of those universal, very fat, super fat things that almost every super fat person can relate to. That's why she's popular. So once again, let's continue.
Thank you for acknowledging that fat phobia exists. Now, I don't know how America could get any more fat phobic, but since we can all agree of its existence.
So what I find interesting is she's trying to assert, she uses a lot of emotional manipulation or emotional feedback. So if you look at the way that her tone is, if you look at how her facial expressions are, it's very convincing. It's very much a emotional way of communicating with her audience. It's not really about the words that she's saying, it's about how she's saying it and the facial expressions that go with it. So when she talks like this, she's trying to assert that America is the most fat-phobic society in the world, or is one of the only fat-phobic societies in the world, when in reality, that's very, very clearly not true. If that were true, she would not have any kind of relevance. She wouldn't have anybody watching her. You know, if anything, a truly fat-phobic society would suppress her, not uplift her. But that's what's going on. So this is clearly not true. I will say there are social issues with being fat, but in the way that she's talking about fat phobia, she talks about it from a very political perspective, which that doesn't exist. I'm sorry. Just because something isn't in your size at a private corporation doesn't mean that you're politically oppressed. It's not at all the same. But let's go ahead and continue.
Since we can all agree that fat people experience prejudice, hate, and discrimination, let's do something about it. Let's do something about it. We should have federal protections.
See, so she goes at it from a very, very political standpoint. Now, I don't know if this is, when it comes to these fat activists, I don't know how much of it is for posturing, how much of it is just for viewership, right? I don't know if she's taken specific steps to try to get bills passed. She's like Victoria. I don't know if she's done anything like that, but she speaks about it from political action, from she wants a federal regulation on fat phobia, which is clearly not going to happen with the way that our federal government, the makeup of the Senate and the House, that's never going to happen. I think pretty much around both parties would not really make that happen. It's not really a popular issue. It's a very fringe issue to do something like that. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's like one of those topics where I just don't know if it's even going to come up in mainstream society because it's not relevant to most people. Most people can fit in a 2X. I know that kills her, but it's the truth. So let's continue.
Against fat phobia.
So when she says fat phobia, I think it's interesting. We have to think about the actual definition of what they say. When she says this, she's saying anything from being on a diet, anything from telling somebody you're not attracted to them. There's no definition here, right? So all I can do as a passive viewer of fat acceptance TikTok is assume that she's agreeing with the overall picture, the overall algorithm of fat acceptance, which means anything from, oh, did you hear that Becky lost weight today? That's fat phobic. Oh, I think I want to lose a few pounds. That's fat phobic. Oh, I think that being fat is unhealthy. That's fat phobic, right? All these things are within the umbrella of fat phobia. This isn't just like, you can't work here, you can't come in this establishment if you're too fat, you can't do this, you can't do that, which again, it hasn't really happened. They act like there's a segregation or something like that. That doesn't really exist for fat people. There are certain physical limitations, like you can't ride a horse, for example, if you're too big, or you can't zip line because it's dangerous, right? There's certain things where there are weight limits for safety reasons. And it would be the same thing within a job. There could be some liabilities there within certain industries or certain jobs where it can be an issue. But they're wanting to use the law to change everybody's mind about fat people. And that will never occur. But I don't know if that's even their goal, because they just want to complain about it for clout and money, and corporations want to use them to get more money out of fat people as well. So it's like, it's interesting. It's very interesting to me.
Why doesn't it exist? Because our own government leaders are fat phobic. Everybody is fat phobic by default because the system is set up that way.
So I found that really interesting because I don't know what she's talking about, the system, because within the entire planet, there are many, many different systems. There's been many systems throughout history, and pretty much regardless of time or place, fat phobia, in terms of like the actual fat phobia or like making fun of fat people or whatever, or not seeing it as attractive, a lot of these different things, they've kind of been basically everywhere. All throughout cultures, all throughout time, with very, very few exceptions, they often use, like, I think it's like a fertility goddess as like a representation of fat being seen as beautiful, but that goddess is pregnant, not fat. There's a difference, right? And I also think that there's a difference between being curvy or having fatness on you because you have money and everybody's starving and you're fine versus being super morbidly obese. I don't know if that's ever been seen as attractive across any culture. And it pains me to say that, I am in that category still, and it's a very stark reality that I have to live with every day and that a lot of people do, but it is reality. All I'm trying to say is there isn't really a system. There are some people that do find very, very fat people attractive, but it's always going to be a more niche thing. Always. So, anyways, I thought it was interesting the way she worded that. Okay. I just also want to add too that this comment is, I'm not going to really get into it, but I wouldn't agree with it. I'll put it to you that way. Let's continue.
It's set up that way. Y'all don't want.
So I think this person is saying that it's embarrassing that you have to ask for a seatbelt extender, which it is, honestly. It's awful. When you have to stand there, you have to ask. I had to do it. I flew not a lot, but I did fly in 2022 and I was much bigger then than I am now. It was horrible. I think it was my flights that directly preceded my caloric deficit, because it was not because of just that, but it is kind of funny, the timing. Like, it was so awful that I immediately decided to count calories after, which is hilarious. But that's why I always say to, like, you should always encourage fat people to get out and live their lives, because then they can see these things. And that's much more convincing when a fat person sees barriers in their way to get the motivation to lose weight, which is why I'm very much a proponent of get out more, help people get out more. If you're a thin person that has fat friends and you want to help them lose weight, get them out more. Have them have, I know it sounds bad, but they can have these experiences, like not being allowed into a club, being too tired to walk, or getting on a plane and not being able to fit in the seat very well, or, any of these different things, having to ask for the seatbelt extender. Like, these are moments where reality hits a fat person, and it is important to get them to live their lives, because that's the only reason I had any motivation to try, was because I was getting out and I was living life. So it's important, but it doesn't hit everybody, as it obviously doesn't hit Samyra. She has these experiences and she uses it to build clout. She uses it to build influence. So for her, I think she's actually happy when it happens, but she has a reverse incentive, which we're going to get into probably by the end of this video, because I do have a lot to say about that reverse incentive that she has. But essentially, because she is a fat acceptance influencer, it would be very, very detrimental to her online presence if she were to lose weight. That's what I'll say to start with. But let's continue.
Fat people to have seat belts on the airplane. I don't know, man. Like, fat phobia really just don't hit. Like it don't make no sense.
Like, riddle me this, and ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Like, how you want us to go to the gym? You want us to eat a salad? You want us to take care of our bodies, but you don't want us to have a seatbelt on an airplane?
So I think when I was watching this, I had certain moments back in 2022 where I acted like a fat activist. I know that that's horrifying to say, but it is reality. And, you know, I recognize my past, right? I had this video. It's still up if you want to see it. But I had this video where I called out the fat phobia of Swifties. And to be honest, I was trolling a little bit. I think when you're really big, you have this spotlight on you, especially online, and sometimes it's fun. So sometimes it's like really easy to just say something and it really triggers people. Like I really, really triggered Gen Z because I said that Taylor Swift is fat phobic, which to this day I absolutely think she is. But that's kind of beside the point. But let me do the lip service. She's not that fat phobic. It's more about herself, blah, 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 blah. I don't think so. I think she is. Oh, I might have just blown up my mic. But anyways, I don't think so. I think she is. Sorry about that. So basically, I'm like, I said that, and all the Gen Z Swifties, they came in and they just like bombarded my channel because I did a short, and they were so mad. So I did a video and I showed the fat phobia of them. And to be honest, I think it is a decent video to watch. But it is funny to look back on, and it is scarring because the way that my attitude was, how I talked, everything, it was kind of similar to Samyra. And it comes from running on adrenaline, which is what she's doing. So although it can be fun, it can be charismatic, it can be interesting, engaging content, it is still a little dark to me because I understand the hormonal background of how she's talking like this and doing this type of stuff. Even though it's funny, it is based on adrenaline, which means that the metabolism is not running very well, which means that her health is likely worse than it appears, which is what I see as having been that 25-year-old that was going crazy on the internet a while back, and what happened in the years that followed and how awful it was. I know, as I say to a lot of these fat activists, I know your future. I've seen the end. It got very bad for me in 2020. And this isn't going to go anywhere good, the way that her health likely is. That's what I'll say.
I don't know. It's weird. That's what's embarrassing. Respectfully.
So I will say that it was interesting because that attitude of like when you're very, very big, there's a lot of times where you just feel like you can't even live. And it's because it's hard. And I don't think a lot of very big people, especially in the fat activist space, they don't understand how hard it is for them to just get up in the morning. So it's like if everything from getting up in the morning, tying your shoes, walking around, going to the grocery store, if everything is just this Herculean task, getting on a plane, having to ask for a seatbelt extender, having to do this, like if all these things like are so incredibly difficult for you, then whenever somebody else says any little bit of criticism to you or has any little bit of an issue, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So you spend a lot of time being really upset, and you spend a lot of time snapping at people, and you spend a lot of time doing all this stuff because you feel like every day is a battle. And so it's like every day is a battle. I'm fighting everything all the time, and now you're fighting me too. Well, I'm going to pounce on you. And that's kind of what she's doing. And I used to be that way. So that's why I understand it. It comes from being very, very ill, physically ill. so physically ill that it affects your mental health. And so, again, even though at this stage is still as charismatic and funny and all these things, it's going to get worse for her. Let's continue.
Respectfully.
So this is interesting because this video, she kind of calls out Alan Roberts, which a lot of people in my audience, you guys don't like him. I can understand it. I'm not going to speak bad on him necessarily. It's a style that I don't particularly like, which maybe I can comment on a bit because he's in this clip that she's going to do. But more than anything, I want to show how ineffective Alan Roberts' rhetoric is to an actual fat activist, or to somebody who's been super huge for a long time, which, you know, maybe that's not his demographic. That's not who he's targeting. Maybe he's targeting people that are more, you know, in the mid-fat category or 100 pounds overweight or less, right? That kind of range. And maybe he has success with that. That's why I'm not going to talk bad about him. I think anybody that's helping with the issue is important. But I want to show this aspect of how she uses it as a weapon. So somebody commented and said, he, aka Alan Roberts, is truly vile. I saw his YouTube video about your Barbies and it was downright evil. Okay, so let's look at it.
So I went and looked it up myself. Why is YouTube even still giving him a platform? Please, just watch. Just watch.
The shininess, I would wonder if it's cheeseburger juice, because like I'm telling you, this is not healthy by any fucking stretch of the imagination. So she thinks she's amazing. I can't have the rest of it.
You see her face? It's so interesting to me. Because I can like feel the adrenaline coming off her. Like I can feel how upset she is, you know, and she's using that. I used to do that all the time. It's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of feels like dancing with the devil. It's a weird feeling. I don't know if you guys have, if some of you guys, or some of you girlies have told me that you've lived off of adrenaline before in my comments. And if you have, then you know what that's like. I have too. So it's very interesting to see her face. It's very interesting.
But she thinks she's amazing. Look at the attitude with the 25 rolls hanging up the side. You're a joke. You're a joke. Complete joke. Yeah, yep. You're a joke. Still a joke. Yeah, hair twirl, back tits. Here we go.
So it's interesting to me because she can just use that. So part of like their game is to characterize every single person that is an anti-FA. Every single person is just like Alan Roberts. And that's not true. Obviously, nothing is a monolith in terms of YouTube and culture and all these different things, even movements, anti-movements, whatever you want to call it. There's no true monolith. Like even within fat acceptance, there are different kinds of fat acceptance activists. However, a lot of them repeat the exact same talking points. You could say that we do too on this side, but ultimately, you know, something like weight being determined by calories, that's true. That's a universal thing. You're going to have pretty much anybody in anti-FA say that at some point because it is reality, right? We may disagree on certain points. I focus a lot on hormones on this channel. But ultimately, what she's serving to do is she's trying to showcase this as this is how every anti-FA is. Every single anti-FA focuses on shaming, focuses on humiliation and these kinds of things. And I think, I'm not sure if Alan's approach is to just like kind of use a lot of FAs as like the sort of sacrificial lamb, or like we all talk crap about this person to try to get his audience to differentiate themselves from someone like her. I don't know. You know, that's kind of what I think of, and maybe it works. Like I see on his audience, people like it, etc. I don't do it that way though, because I don't think it's very effective for most women. And not that I don't care about the men in my audience, that's not true at all. I just think that there does need to be a little bit more of a feminine touch in the space, which I think is good, especially since a lot of women struggle with obesity. And a lot of these fat activists, they are marketing themselves towards women. And it's really important that we counter this, across all sides and in all, men and women, etc. It's important to cover all of our bases. But for me, I do focus more on that side of things, which is fine. Whereas there's like Alan, there's like, I think not Dave It. I think I started watching him. He's taking a more masculine approach. Some people take a more masculine approach. Some people take a more feminine approach. And I think that that's fine. I think we need all different kinds. So I don't really know what to say about it other than I wouldn't do it. I know how a lot of people are when they're coming from BED. They're very emotional, very sensitive. I know the mind state of somebody who's 350 pounds, 400 pounds. I know what that feels like mentally. And when they see somebody like him, when they hear somebody like him, it's just this feeling of like you just gasp. And it's like you want to hold your breath a little bit. And then the adrenaline goes. And then eventually you just go get something to eat, basically. And so I don't ever want to be the cause of that on this channel, which is why, first of all, I am introverted, but that's also why I talk the way I do, where I talk about it more calmly, because it appeals more towards women. It appeals more towards people who are adrenal or stressed or in that state. And again, I like yellers. I like that too, but I think it's just important to cover, I felt like I found my niche in this space. There's got to be someone like me here. That's kind of how I felt when I was starting to enter into this genre. I think I found my voice at this point, but yeah, that's also why I talk this way, just because it is my voice. Literally, I have a calming voice. I literally had somebody say, "You should do ASMR. This was so relaxing to listen to." I'm like, oh, I've tried, but I never know what to talk about, so I can't do ASMR. I've tried. I'm not extroverted. I can't just talk about nothing. I don't have that ability. And I found like every time I try to do ASMR, I just start bringing up contentious, controversial issues. And I'm like, okay, that's not it, but it's fine. We're here, right? So it has a niche. It has a place. But yeah, I feel for her. I want to go ahead and talk about why I don't think she's going to lose weight now. I feel for her. I see this incredibly ambitious. I think she's pretty. I think she has that her whole life going ahead of her. Like she has her whole life in front of her, right? She's ambitious. She's charismatic. She's talented. I see this person, and I just see somebody who is like running towards the edge of a cliff. And I feel like she doesn't know. And it kills me, because if something were to happen to her, it would be very sad. It'd be a huge waste. And I think that there's a lot of people where something bad has happened to them when they're on this path of obesity, that it was a waste. And that honestly, I don't want to think about it too much, because I could literally probably start crying. Like I think of wasted years. I think of so many different things, so many people I know, how this issue has affected them, and it is just horrible. And, I wonder if she's able to sleep at night, that kind of stuff. It must be exhausting. But to me, I think she's at this point of fatness where her viewership is coming from it. If she wasn't as big as she is, she wouldn't get as many views. And I think she's the kind of person where that would devastate him. That would devastate her. Because essentially, there is this aspect within weight loss where you get into what they call mid-fat. I call it the mid-fat curse. It's essentially a time when your hormones shift and your body becomes sort of unrecognizable to other people. It's a very bizarre stage. I do want to do a whole video about it, but I'm still formulating my opinions on it. But essentially, if she were to get to a certain size, if she were to lose weight and get to a certain size, her hormones would shift and she wouldn't be able to make faces like this anymore because she would feel cringed out and she would be ashamed. And I think a lot of times really, really big people, they don't want to feel that shame. They don't want to go through that stage. I didn't want to for a lot of years because you feel like it takes everything for you to have any shred of confidence. Then you start trying to lose weight and then you lose all your confidence. And it's awful. But you get your confidence back the further you go. You know, I'm on an upward swing. It's getting better. And now I'm more reasonable. I'm more calm and I'm more confident while being calm. And I think a lot of times really big people where they have this adrenaline they're running on, or they feel like I have the spotlight on me, I have all this stuff going on. They feel like there's a power in it, but there isn't. You're just bouncing around like a ping pong ball at different traumatic events in your life and drama and fighting. That's all you're doing. You're not getting anywhere. And I wish I could say that to my 25-year-old self. So I'm going to say it to her. I'm going to say it to you guys in the audience. It's better to be healthier. It's better to be calm. It's better to be reasonable. But that doesn't mean that we have to be unconfident. You know, I may be introverted, but I still have some introverted riz, okay? It may look different. People may not always get it, but it's okay. Because we all are different. And for me to act crazy and have faces like that and do that kind of stuff, I had to be unhealthy because it's not naturally who I am. And I do think a lot of these fat activists, they are like that. But with that, you guys, I'm going to go. Please send your comments below. I love reading them so much. And I hope you enjoyed this. And don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you liked it. Thank you. I will talk to you guys again later. Bye.